We all love stories, but we are not all storytellers. Welcome to another adventure in Guyanese literature. Welcome to another virtual edition of Oral Tradition. We look at memory, revoking of memory. We look at poetry and prose. We look at various themes as we welcome the author of MAE'S Legacy and Ink on Paper. Melva, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Welcome to Oral Tradition.
Thank you very much, Petamber. It's so good to be with you again. It's been a few years.
Yeah, yeah. Nice to have you. You are essentially an academic,
Yes, yes, I am.
right? You've written poetry and prose. Tell us about this transition from academia, academic writing, to poetry, to prose.
Well, the thing is, as an academic, you always, writing is a part of our life as academics.
Mm-hmm.
And I I always felt close to the creative process in writing and always loved reading and writing. But there's as an academic, there's not a whole lot of time to do that. So it came, but slowly, and it has continued slowly as well because I cannot devote large swaths of time to creative writing. I have to do bits and pieces here
Mm-hmm.
and there,
Mm-hmm.
and mostly in the summer months when I don't have to teach and do serious research, then I can devote some time to writing. But as I said before, literature has always been my love. I joined the National Library at the time. It was the Public Free Library in Kenzie when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
So books and reading and writing have always been a great love for me.
Mm-hmm. Let's slow down there. Books, library. Tell me about your reading interests.
My reading interests are really varied. And as I mentioned, I really don't get to do as much reading as I would love to, as much casual reading. Um, but I really, as an academic, I do a lot of reading in Latin American literature because that is my area.
Mm-hmm.
I teach Spanish, and my research interests are in Latin American literature, specifically Afro Latin American literature. So I think I've been influenced in some of my writing by some of the roots of Latin American literature. People have told me that some of my writing is fragmented. Um, so there's that. I also love my West Indian literature. That is the literature that I grew up reading
Mm-hmm.
most of that in school. West Indian, Caribbean West Indian literature. Uh, and there's also, of course, some of the British colonial great of writing that I've enjoyed reading.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dickens, Jane Austen, and others. So but my reading interests are really varied.
I
And
I got
in the last few years, I have been reading some of the African American writers.
you.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I said, really, really varied. And those things influence us because there's one poem, and I think you told me you like that one in ink on paper called Intertexts. And in that, I really point to the the writers, people who I've read and whose works I've studied, and some I've just read casually, who have influenced me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you have that poem at hand? Would you like to share that poem?
yes, I do have ink on paper here. Yes, it's one of the early poems in the book, and it's not that long. So actually, I start off by referring to someone who is not even a well-known writer, but it's one of my friends who published a book of poems, and she had one called Pretty Weeds. So I'm going to start there.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, a friend once wrote of pretty weeds in praise of the Creator's deeds. Another wrote of soldiers' boots and flowers trampled underfoot. A third with words inaudible helped eyes see things invisible. Behold the one who told the tale of a would-be knight who wielded swords. He dreamed about a lady fair and battled mills with justice fair. When he arrived with finger six, the pundit's words he soon fulfilled. Throughout his life he strove to build a house of stone he called his own. I marvel too at Lady Fair, sailing up through the sky so clear. A sheet her robe, so proud she soared. The earth her beauty could no longer hold. The little girl's one fervent prayer was sea blue eyes and golden curls. A self despised, deceived by lies, a sad outcome for one so young. The words of those who went before, they touch my heart, they guide my pen. I search for those I'll call my own.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's intertext. And of course, you will see we talk about the writers. My friend Claudia Haywood, who was the one who wrote Pretty Weeds.
Uh-huh.
Then I mentioned we have Martin Carter there, we have Cervantes there,
Mm-hmm.
we have Gabriel Garcia Marquez,
Yes, yes.
we have Toni Morrison, and so so those are people whose works I've read, and I think I, in reading them, I try to find my they've influenced me, and I've tried to find my own style and my own way of expressing myself.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I think now, well, it's not modern. Writers writing back to other writers. I mean, and you can see it in the text. You read whatever writing, and you can see the influences popping up. You will see Carter, you will see Wilson, you will see, Morrison and other writers, Marquez and all of that popping up in your writing. Let's go. Let's go to your book of prose writing, Mame's Legacy. We move from your poetry to
Sure.
yeah, to short fiction. What influenced putting these short pieces together?
Well, it's interesting. I started writing these stories long before I started writing the poems,
Ah,
but the poems came easier, and so I ended up publishing a book of poems before the story. So I feel like I'm more naturally a poet than a prose writer. Nevertheless, you asked about influence. I, I think those stories came from started from a place of pain. I was taking care of my mother, who I could see I was losing before my eyes. And I was reflecting on all these women in my life, and I realized that I've had so many wonderful women who have influenced me, who have helped me, who have nurtured me. And, some of them are not even family members, they're neighbors, they're people in the street. And thinking about these wonderful women in my life, and then knowing that I was losing the ones to whom I was closest,
Yeah.
I, I wanted to document. I just felt this need to document, and so I started writing about some of the. Well, I want to. I wouldn't say that I actually started writing about the women, but I'm just saying that I start. They provided. Want to say the seed,
That's right.
seed that was able to fertilize and nourish
Dress up and what
and,
have you.
yes, go into the stories that we have in Mami's legacy.
Right, and I like the arrangement. I like the arrangement. Before we go to the arrangement, you dedicated this book to those important. Let me get the exact word. Uh, Wonderful women of two families.
Yes,
Right, and it's
like
important.
paternal and maternal
Great.
family.
Right, and it's important that we do this because so very often in our history and in our literature, we kind of, it's a bad thing we do, overlooking the women folk in the story of our life. And women play an enormous role in our life. And I like this conversation. I like the way it's going. Tell us about some of the memorable characters and the motifs or the technique that you use to remember. I have some notes here that you use things like the chair, the rocking chair by the window,
Mm-hmm.
the photo frame, the diary. Diary
Yes.
writing or journaling, very important for writers. If you go back to A.J. Seymour and Mittelholzer, they were keeping diaries and journals. In the case of Mittelholzer, he kept a diary of even the weather. That's why a lot of his writing is based on the weather. Right. Take us now through the story and some of the motifs that you use to remember in order to tell some of your stories. You can start from the back to the front, or from the front to the back, or the middle.
I want to start. Okay, I'm first gonna highlight a few, but I will start with Mame's house, because if you look at that, you realize house, that house or home was very important, and it was a home in which so many lived and were nurtured. And so in that home, you would notice that we talk about a strong home, a home that was built by self-reliance and
Respect,
so on.
manners, respect and manners. I think those are the words you
Yes,
use.
exactly. Yes, and respect and good manners.
Yes.
But you would notice that there was a point when Mommy noticed that termites were eating away at a part of the house, and they had to work on repairing that. So I don't want to tell the whole story, because I would really like the viewers and listeners to go ahead and read the story.
Of course.
But there were some things that were happening in Mame's life that paralleled that termite infestation.
Right.